8 years ago on this channel, I reviewed the inaugural Wrestlemania event. 4 years later, the video got blocked for copyright purposes. Well, since then, a lot has changed. You know, the set has changed, my style of reviewing has changed, the star rating has changed, my tastes in many ways have changed. So I figured since this is Wrestlemania season, it is always fun to look back at the classics. So after enough time has passed since the last review, I figured now is the time to bring it back and dust off this old VHS tape and once again go 41 years into the past and look at where it all began. Again, it's time to look at the inaugural Wrestlemania from March 31st, 1985 at Madison Square Garden in New York City. It's the show that at one point was conceptually known as the Colossal Tussle, but thankfully cooler heads prevailed when it came to naming the show. You know, the WWF was not the first company to invent, the big annual super show concept. Starrcade came before Wrestlemania, but this was the WWF's answer to that. Wrestlemania aired on closed circuit, not the traditional pay-per-view style that we are kind of familiar with. This predates that. It was basically a simulcast screening at movie theaters and auditoriums and arenas all across the country. About 200 locations in all screened Wrestlemania, and about 1 million people nationwide watched it that way. It's not unlike, the phantom events, those kind of live events, those screenings that happen at movie theaters today, for instance. And by the way, if any of you watching this video actually attended that original closed circuit screening somewhere for the first Wrestlemania, give a comment below. I'd love to hear what that experience was like. Of course, the first Wrestlemania is the culmination of nearly a year of build and partnership with MTV, involving those cable specials, the brawl to end it all, and the war to settle the score leading in to WrestleMania, driving up a huge amount of interest nationwide in that event, and the involvement with Cyndi Lauper as well. I did a whole video on the build-up to the first Wrestlemania and the Rock and Wrestling Connection. You can check that video out right here. There's a massive promotional push for this, of course. Mr. T and Hulk Hogan making all sorts of media appearances. On the negative side of things, there was the Hot Properties appearance with Richard Belzer, where Hogan, accidentally chokes Belzer out on the show and makes him splat on his head on the stage and everything. That was pretty nasty. But then on the lighter side of things, on the night before WrestleMania, Hogan and T filled in at the last minute to host SNL, so that was a nice extra promotional push. And of course, they needed everything they could get at this point. And the more I've read up on this topic and researched, the build of what made WrestleMania happen, it's just, you realize what an insane amount of right place, right time it was for Vince McMahon, because he had this brazen confidence about him after defying all these norms and these conventions. He just seems to have this inherent knowledge that what he was going to do was going to pay off, because it had to, because that was the story, that everything was on the line, that he had mortgaged everything and put everything up for collateral to make this show succeed. And so I guess with that, with this everything to lose mindset, you're going to do what you have to do to make it work. And it was not only that, but also a shitload of lucky breaks. So many things along the journey of WrestleMania and this ascension, which by all rights should have tanked his aspirations and should have, cratered this company. But for whatever reason, those things didn't happen, and here we are today. And make no mistake, the MTV partnership is what makes WrestleMania the success that it is. Because if they didn't have that, direct pipeline to pop culture and the youth culture and what was hip and cool, this product alone was not going to do that. WrestleMania now obviously is such a different animal than what it was back then, because it was a super show, but it wasn't a let's get literally the cream of the crop, our absolute best upper echelon talent on this show. Because, if you go by that logic, there are a few people who you think would be on a card like WrestleMania and aren't there. The British Bulldogs aren't on this card, and they're amazing. Same with the Hart Foundation. Tony Atlas was paid not to work this show, as the story goes. So now, after all this time, 8 years since the last time I watched this show in its entirety, with more, knowledge and life experiences under my belt, how am I going to feel? How is my perspective going to change on this show. Will it change? We'll have the old star ratings next to the new ones to see how it looks over time. But with that out of the way, let's get down to it. Let's get on to Easy Lover, Phil Collins and Philip Bailey. Classic song, great way to open the show. You won't hear this version if you ever watch a rebroadcast of WrestleMania or on Netflix, what have you. These matchup pictures they have, some of these are hilarious. I don't know where they got some of these, like the cutout picture of Andre the Giant is hilarious. And holy shit, Moolah looks absolutely evil here in this promo picture. And this executioner you see here is not the one you're going to see tonight. Nearly 20,000 folks packed the Mecca on this night, and like I mentioned, the closed circuit audience nationwide totaled to more than 1 million people. We tossed to Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse the Body Ventura at ringside. It's the wrestling extravaganza of all time, Gorilla says. They toss to Howard Finkel in the ring, who tosses over to Mean Gene Okerlund, who asks the audience to help him out, and the arena sings along to the Star Spangled Banner. You know, it's a great rendition. I thought Gene did a great job. I thought it was entertaining to see him kind of get the crowd in with him. Everybody, you know, it's kind of a jovial, laid-back nature you don't see much for the anthem these days, but I thought it was also just kind of funny that you've got all these celebrities and whatnot, and the person to open the show and sing the national anthem is Mean Gene Okerlund. Here he is. We go back to Lord Alfred Hayes standing by in the entranceway, and we're going to see a lot of him tonight, and boy, after watching this again, and also watching a lot of his stuff and his stand-ups and everything in the build to this show, all like the WWF updates, I am like so baffled how this guy had a job for as long as he did in the WWF, because he has like a fine posh accent and all this, but like, boy, when he's by himself, he reminds me so much of like a primordial version of Dr. Steve Brule. He's just up there so rigid, his hair looks out of place, he stumbles over his words, it looks like he's doing all this being held up at gunpoint. And it's just, it's so funny to see him there, because I'm like, who is this guy? You watch him, and I'm like, wait a minute, they have a guy named Jack Reynolds doing commentary around the same time here at this company. Why not somebody who's like well-spoken and who actually has a voice for broadcast like him for a show like this? That boggled my mind. This angle is so funny. I don't know why they did it this way, because you see him in the foreground talking, and you will all night see wrestlers going behind him or in front of him, like Matt Borne like almost walks in front of the shot and he stops himself. It's so hilarious to me how unorganized this space is. There's no uniformity. There's no like any kind of floor director to tell the wrestlers, no, go this way. Because the idea of having the wrestlers kind of like walk behind Lord Alfred Hayes while he's talking, like from kind of a distance, would be cool, but they're like right up next to him, and it's just so funny. They're basically just kind of interacting with him. We go to some pre-recorded interviews backstage with Mean Gene Okerlund in the middle. I do love these formats for the old style of interviews where it's like, this guy gets a chance to talk, he walks off, and then like the other guy who he was just talking like mad shit about comes right in to give his rebuttal. Like he was just there to listen to all of it, but he kept his cool, and then he's gonna speak his mind here. So you have Tito Santana out first talking about the executioner, and Mean Gene's like, you know, this guy's undefeated, but I know nothing about this man. And Tito's like, you know, I have respect for all my opponents, but you know, you're a big man, but you've never been in the big leagues, and you know, I'm gonna show that no one's gonna stop me tonight. So then he leaves, the executioner comes in, and folks, I've talked about this before. If you know, you know, the executioner is Playboy Buddy Rose under a mask. And Buddy Rose was my first wrestling trainer, and the inspiration behind one part of my tattoo piece on my arm, my favorite wrestling masks. The inspiration. This is Buddy as the executioner. And it's so funny to watch this, and I'll tell the story of why he is in this mask in a minute. But upon rewatching this, I just go, man, Buddy, couldn't you have looked in the mirror for like 2 seconds before you went on camera? What's going on with this look, man? The hair sticking out of your mask, the nose part's not even like straight on. It is just not a good look. And I feel that this is a promo that could have benefited from a retake.
I don't think we're going to get any clues.
You will know something about me after I get through with Tito Santana.
And he says, I'm going after your leg, the leg that was hurt by Greg Valentine, and there's a reason for it, and soon you will know why I am the executioner. I am a big leaguer. Oh, buddy. Oh, man, why'd they make you have to cut a promo like that? Buddy! So we go to our opener, the first match in WrestleMania history as Tito Santana takes on the Executioner. So why is Playboy Buddy Rose, who at this point is a pretty big deal in the Pacific Northwest territory, what is he doing under a mask dressed as the Executioner? Well, the story went that George Scott, who was the booker at the time, told Buddy he wanted to use him at WrestleMania, but he didn't want Buddy to lose because he had big plans for Rose in the future. So, Rose had to borrow this black singlet, this black outfit from Ed Wiskowski's bag, and I had to reread the story of where the mask came from. I thought it came from Ed as well. No, it turns out, I think that Buddy borrowed the mask from Rocky Johnson, because Buddy said in an interview he borrowed it off a wrestler named Sweet Ebony, which was a name that Rocky Johnson went under when he wrestled under a mask, and Rocky did work the Portland territory in the early 80s. So that might be the connection. It might be that Buddy Rose borrowed Rocky Johnson's mask to play the Executioner, and they used electrical tape to cover up like Playboy Rose on his custom boots. And that's why we have this weird schlubby look for Buddy here as the masked Executioner. It's such a weird look. And the fact that, again, this is your super show. This is your big show of the year. Put your best foot forward. And your opener is Tito Santana versus a masked guy who has never shown up on your show before. What? It starts off with some crisscrossing, a big back body drop, and a drop kick out of the ring. Santana with a nice headlock. Oh shit, super headlock takeover here. The Executioner stalls for a bit and then cuts him off. He starts to go for that leg like he promised. Tito comes back. Buddy begs off again a couple of times. Hits a tough-looking back drop. He goes up top. Tito grabs and beels him off. The Executioner works the leg a little more in the ropes, gets launched out. He comes back in but takes the flying forearm. Tito puts in the figure four, and the Executioner quickly gives up. Tito wins the first match in WrestleMania history. Well, of course, back when I first did this review, it was under a 4-star rating scale, but now under the new and improved 5-star rating system, I give this 2 out of 5. It's a short and sweet matchup, but they cover a lot of ground. They do a lot of fast-paced action in the early going. Starting off with the crisscross was a really nice touch. I think that the biggest question mark for me as to why Tito and Buddy are even wrestling here is because Tito is in the middle of a feud with Greg Valentine, the Intercontinental Champion, who we will also see on this night. And basically the reason that I've read, everyone's explained, well, they wanted to, build up that program for the IC title for a show later down the year, which is fine, I guess, but I think that is something that's going to stick in my craw, and, that is going to be a detriment to this particular show, the fact that they split Tito and Valentine up on this night. And like I mentioned, the whole point of Buddy in a mask was to protect him for booking further down the line, but ultimately it was all for naught, as Buddy was soon after fired from the company for drug-related reasons. He would come back later in the early 90s as a jobber after spending time again in Portland and the AWA. In his revisit to the WWF, of course, he's probably best known for being the namesake of the blowaway diet. Lord Al is backstage to set up our next matchup, and he's got some nervous eyes. MGO in the promo zone with SD Jones. He says he's ready to get down with the biggest thing in town, King Kong Bundy. He's going to get down and tells everyone to buy some hats. Then in comes Bundy with his manager, the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, with no cape and no eyebrows. Where are this man's eyebrows? He says it's only fitting that the biggest show in wrestling should feature the biggest man in wrestling, and he wants SD Jones to think about the Avalanche and a 5 count. We get that match up next as SD Jones takes on the mammoth King Kong Bundy, who Gorilla Monsoon describes as a mountain with legs and feet and arms. It's a pretty open and shut case. SD Jones comes off the ropes, but he's caught in a bear hug. Bundy runs him into the corner, hits the running avalanche, hits the big splash, the cover, and the win. And that sets a WrestleMania record for fastest match time at 24 seconds, which, hang on, what? Oh, 9 seconds is what they say. Okay, they call it 9, and they're just going to lie about that. Forever. Like, that never changes. They're always going to say that's a 9-second match to this day, but it's not. It's 24. I don't know what happened there. I think there might have been something where maybe SD Jones like didn't come out of the corner fast enough or something. There's no way they could have done what they had planned to do and have it fit 9 seconds. Like, it just doesn't make any sense that they were really so steadfast in that. If they wanted that, it should have been a very different sequence they planned out there. But I'm going to give it 0 stars out of 5. It's a big squasharoo, and I guess it's momentous and it's pivotal in that way for WrestleMania history or whatever. But like, the whole timing thing is bullshit. We wouldn't get an actual like, you know, sub 10 match at WrestleMania until like 32. Back to Lord Alfred Hayes, who talks about a new star coming to the WWF, an exciting, fine young athlete named Ricky Steamboat. And recently they made a pre-recorded interview. First, we go backstage where Okerlund is interviewing Maniac Matt Borne from Portland, Oregon, they say. Borne's got his shades on inside, and he says that Steamboat is missing one key quality. He's too nice a guy. And Borne says he's not so nice, and he's here to fight and to win. We then get Steamboat coming in after that, and he emphasizes the enormity of the show, and he says he's come to the WWF to get meaner, and he's going to start with Matt Borne. More PNW flavor on this show as Borne takes on Steamboat. They do bring up Matt Borne's lineage. Tough Tony Borne is his father, and they had a nice run for each of themselves in the Pacific Northwest. And of course, Matt is best known for being the first iteration of Doink the Clown many years after this. Steamboat, like I mentioned, is the relative newcomer to the WWF. He's been teaming with Jimmy Snuka on TV as of late. Ricky works the headlock early on. Borne takes a big atomic drop. He sells it, and Steamboat locks him, which is funny. Borne gets some offense in, but Steamboat catches him with some leg strikes out of the corner, works back into the headlock. Borne lets out this big yell before hitting a vertical suplex. Ricky comes back with some more big offense. We get some leapfrog action. Steamboat with the tackle follows up with a big flying crossbody off the top rope. Ricky gets the win. I'm going to give this one 2 stars out of 5 as well. I thought the match was okay. Again, I kind of liken it to that opening match with Executioner and Tito, where there's a lot of fast-paced stuff to keep the fans interested. There is some good bumping and feeding, good selling in this matchup. I just feel like, you know, again, it's so funny to like think of what WrestleMania had grown to become even the following year. You know, the emphasis on the super big matches and the enormity of the star power and everything. And you just have a lot of matches on this show that don't have that. And it blew my mind. Because again, it's not like the star power is not there. It's not like they couldn't put a bunch of matches together that's strictly star versus star and make every single match like that. I guess you got to have some downbeats. You got to have, right? You got to have some squash matches or matches in the death spot or whatever, as we kind of use in the modern lexicon. So, you know, you got to have that, I guess. But it's just, you know, again, it's just the way that the WWF was looking at themselves, looking at their talent. It is fascinating to see what Mania was like back then and how it was treated compared to how we perceive it now. We go back to Al talking about the pompous but powerful Brutus Beefcake matched against David Sammartino. His fortunes are guided by his father as Johnny V walks by him and says, "Hey, wake up!" Then we get that pre-taped interview with David Sammartino with Papa Bruno at his side. He says that, you know, Beefcake has been awful cocky lately since taking out Big Jim's leg. I had to figure out who he was referring to, and he said Big Jim. He means Hillbilly Jim. Because I'm like, wait a minute, Jim Neidhart, he's still around. He didn't get his leg taken out. But anyway, so he says what goes around comes around. And Bruno wraps it up by saying, "Johnny Valiant, don't stick your nose in, or so help me, you're going to find this." I'm still working on it. Then luscious Johnny V and Brutus Beefcake walk in. Wow, look at the outfit on the beefer here. And Johnny V says, "I'll stick my schnoz where I want to. Hey, Brutus, tell him what you're going to do." And then Brutus is just quiet for a second, and then he just goes, and then he goes, "I'll do the talking for you." Oh, it's so funny. I just like this. Who is this real life Tony Clifton made flesh, you know, before me here? Like, Johnny V is just a funny character. There's a lot about him I like, but as a manager, I'm like, you take way too much away from the people you're managing here. And hey, look, everyone changed outfits for this matchup as Brutus Beefcake takes on David Sammartino. Bruno getting a nice reception from the Garden crowd, made a lot of history there for many years. And meanwhile, Jesse wondering, since there's a father and son duo here, wondering if Beefcake is Johnny Valiant's son. The match begins. We had a lot of stalling early on with Johnny V. They go to lock up, Brutus doing a little strutting. Jesse's saying on commentary the loser of this match could fall back as far as 6 months in their career. Like, Jesus, there's a lot of much higher stakes, it seems like, in wrestling in the 80s. David catching Brutus in some holds. Brutus gets into the ropes. He goes to slam David, but David holds on. David's working the leg for an awful long time, but Brutus rakes the eyes with his glittery gauntlet and takes control. I love that cutoff. Big elbow right into the mush of Dave Sam, and the Beefer's looking strong. David fights back with a series of punches, hits a big vertical suplex. Brutus throws David out of the ring. Luscious Johnny just grabs him and body slams him on the concrete. Bruno comes in to make the save and starts fighting Valiant. Brutus fights him. Then David comes in. The match is thrown out as father and son shit can the baddies in MSG, and Johnny V makes a face. I give it 1 star out of 5. It is a long, boring match. Very slow. Like, considering the action you will see throughout the rest of this night, I think the fun comes to a halt with this matchup here. David Sammartino does not have the charisma of his dad. He's got the frame. He is built like a tank at this point in his career. It's nuts, but like, he clearly needs Bruno to be by his side to get that rub. And you know, he needs Bruno a lot more than Brutus Beefcake needs Johnny Valiant at this point, for sure. And I think the moment of the Sammartinos at the end was really cool. Father and son in a building that means so much to them and to WWE. But why was this the second longest match of the night? Why was it like just underneath the main event for match length? Like, this is not the match to do that with. Backstage, Lord Alfred Hayes tells us to see what Greg Valentine and the Junkyard Dog had to say on a pre-tape recording. So we see Okerlund in the promo zone with Jimmy Hart and his Valentine. Hammer says he's ready to fight. He hits harder than anyone else. He's down 16 pounds, lean, mean, and full of fury. Then in comes JYD. He says the IC title could be the biggest opportunity of his career. He could buy himself a whole lot of bones. So we go now to the Intercontinental Championship match. Greg Valentine defends against the Junkyard Dog. And again, this does feel like a deviation from the obvious play of Santana and Valentine, but they are delaying that feud for a bit later, and it does play in to this story. But with that knowledge, it really makes it feel like this match is just kind of, it's there to get more guys on the card, basically. Between this and getting Buddy Rose on the card, a few more people did get booked as a result of them splitting this feud up. JYD coming out to another one bites the dust on my version of the show, at least. Valentine's getting outmaneuvered by JYD in the early going. He throws those cool headbutts. Hammer fights back, hits the big elbow drop to the body, and begins to stretch the dog's leg. JYD escapes out of a figure 4 attempt, starts to come back with some big punches, more headbutts. Jimmy Hart gets on the apron. JYD's got him, playing possum, so Greg decks his own manager. He's firing up in the corner. Greg with an eye rake and a roll-up, using the ropes for leverage, and he gets the win to retain. Or so we think, because suddenly in runs Valentine's rival Tito Santana, who goes up to the referee and says, "No, referee, that's not what happened. He cheated." And then the referee's like, "Okie doke, I'll take your word for it, and I'll restart the match because this time that logic's gonna work." And so the match restarts. Valentine's like nuts to this, and he gets counted out. So JYD wins the match, but not the championship. And that's how we end it there. I'm gonna give this one 1.5 stars out of 5. I thought the match told a good story on its own, but the finish was kind of ass. I hate when like the referee can sometimes easily be swayed by outside forces, like not even another referee to tell him, "Oh no, dusty finish, whatever." It's just another guy, another wrestler, which is like, it's weird when sometimes that logic works and sometimes it doesn't. It makes you wonder, well, hey, how come the wrestler doesn't come out every time? There's a supposed injustice, you know? The Valentine-Santana feud, this would continue throughout the rest of the year. Tito would reclaim the belt from Greg in the summertime. But yeah, it's interesting the way they built this up too, because they had matches on TV leading up to this show where Valentine, and the whole battle was who's got the better figure 4 leg lock. And Greg beat him pretty resolutely. Both times I saw him on TV with the figure 4. So I was we're still going. Lord Alfred, P.S. Hayes breaks down the tag title match. Let's hear more about their opinions. We see Gene's in the back with the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkoff with their manager, Freddie Blassie. Blassie predicts these guys will be the next tag team champs, and Volkoff says, Vini Vidi Vici. Then the U.S. Express are here, and look at Captain Lou. Man, ever since he got bashed in the head by the award from Piper, he's just totally cleaned up his act. He's got a haircut, he's shaved off the goatee, he's got a nice little mustache. I think he's drinking a diet caffeine-free Coke in his hand, or it could be beer, I'm not entirely sure. They ask him how he's doing. He says, Billy, we've studied the tape, we've trained real hard, we're gonna give it our best. God bless you and the fans, Billy. For the Tag Team Championship, the U.S. Express, that's Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo with an O, defend against Nikolai Volkoff and the Iron Sheik. Windham and Rotundo, the super popular babyface tag team, coming out to Borne in the USA, another entry in the long line of people who just don't understand what those lyrics are meaning. Before that, we get the singing of the Russian national anthem by Volkoff, and oh boy, the trash being thrown in the ring over that. By the way, I do love how their promos have been ending on TV lately. You know, when Volkoff and Sheik are talking, almost all of them will just end with Sheik's gonna go, camera zoom, and he starts talking about how built he is, and that's gonna fire up Volkoff where he takes his shirt off, and they start smacking each other in the chest to psych each other up. Yeah, I wanna see these guys win. I'll tell you what spot is gonna make this crowd in MSG pop every single time? The leapfrog. I tell you, almost every match has got a leapfrog spot, and every time they do it, it never fails. The crowd goes, every time, just like in this match here. Windham with a big leaping strike off the top onto Sheik. We get an accidental strike from Sheik to Volkoff. I think it's the first time all show we get a mid-match replay, by the way. The champs are showing a lot of fluidity, but then Mike Rotundo's face is thrown right into Sheiky Baby's curl-ed boot. The challengers take turns beating up poor Mike. They've got him in the abdominal stretch while the managers are meeting on the outside. Hot tag is made to Volkoff, and Windham buries a house of fire, but then the Sheik comes in. All 4 guys get involved. The referee is distracted with Rotundo. Sheik using Blassie's cane on Windham in the back. Volkoff with the cover and the win for the foreign baddies. The crowd throwing more garbage into the ring after Sheik and Volkoff are named the new tag team champs. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. You know, I wish that more matches got the time that Sammartino and Beefcake unnecessarily had tonight. I wish you could have taken 2 or 3 minutes off of that match and put it into this one in particular. I think that, the U.S. Express moving circles around Sheik and Volkoff was very entertaining. I thought the finish was very well done. And I just wish these matches were given a bit more time because I liked where this one was going. The U.S. Express would regain the tag belts a few months after this, would ultimately lose them to the dream team of Valentine and Beefcake a little bit later. And as the story goes, the theme Real American was originally supposed to be for the U.S. Express, as they allude to in the wrestling album, but Mike Rotundo was on his way out. He didn't like the schedule of the WWF, and so he left, and then Barry Windham left with him, and so that theme went to Hulk Hogan, and the rest, they say, is history. But Mean Gene is backstage with the new tag team champs, and Gene says it was a controversial ending. What do you mean controversial? Well, where's that cane of yours? What cane? I love that. Sheik says that Iran is the best, Russia #1, USA Akatue. Back to Al, who says 2 giants are going to clash.
John Studd says, I am the only true champion, Giant, and Andre the Giant says, I am the Giant.
We go backstage where Mean Gene is talking to Big John Studd and Bobby Heenan. They're holding that classic WWF duffel bag filled with the 15,000 smackers. I think this show honestly instilled a love and desire for that very WWF bag for a lot of fans growing up. Stud says that this will be the last match of Andrea's career, and Heenan says for 15,000 and a haircut, they're getting rid of Andre the Giant from wrestling, and the only people who will see this money besides themselves are the folks at the bank. But first, intermission time!
This poster is a natural in your den, family room, kids' room, anywhere.
We go to that titanic clash of giants, the $15,000 body slam challenge as Big John Studd takes on Andre the Giant. In the recent past, Studd and Heenan did the unthinkable and cut Andre the Giant's trademark big locks. And as Vince McMahon often repeated, they raped him of his dignity. Studd's been offering $15,000 to anyone who can body slam him. And oh my God, I mean, what a great visual this is for Studd, because he's a big dude. He's walking around with a baggie full of Andre's hair. He's waving around the big wad of cash. He's saying, come and try and slam me. You can't do it. Oh my God, that's an amazing amount of heat, brother. I love that. And by the way, if Andre loses this match, he must retire from wrestling. The match begins and Studd gets to swinging and clubbing at first, but Andre fights back. Studd powders for a bit. He gets back in the ring, and then for the next 5 minutes, Andre just beats his ass. There's nothing to call here. Andre just spends eons destroying Studd. Anytime John tries to get some offense in, nope. He just locks it back in, the bear hug for the longest time. He's just getting all his shit in on this guy. He kicks him in the ass, then finally he just picks him up and body slams him. He wins. Wow, what a struggle that was. So then Andre wins the match. He takes the money, he throws it out into the crowd, but then Bobby Heenan comes up, he grabs the rest of the money, and he runs off. And so, big yay moment for Andre to do that. His career is saved. Why did I think this was such a good story told 8 years ago? Why was this one of my highlights of the show? Oh my God, I'm not expecting Hurricane Ranas. I'm not expecting Olympic press slams. But give me a little bit of something. Give me some back and forth. Shit, at least Mark Henry and The Big Show had back and forth in their body slam match on, episode of Guest Host Raw not too long ago. Oh my word. It's hilarious. They don't talk about this at all. They talk about the body slam, the money, and Andre waving, and that's the shot they use for all of his obituary things and everything. But they don't tell you how Andre just dog walked the fuck out of Studd here. Oh my God. Backstage again, Hayes talks about the ladies' title match. When up come Fabulous Moolah and Leilani Kai, they each plant a big old smooch on the face of his lordship. Okerlund's backstage with Cyndi Lauper and Wendi Richter, and the pop star Lauper calling Fabulous Moolah Shmoolah, which is hilarious. And she goes, these are powerful words because I'm a powerful manager, because Captain Lou Albano taught me how to manage. Billy, Billy, Billy. And Wendi goes, she didn't lose her belt to one person. She lost because Moolah interfered in her match, and she's dead set on getting it back. And then when it's the heels turn, you got Jean going to Moolah, oh, where'd you get those glasses from, Moolah? And she goes, oh, well, my jeweler made them special for me because we're going to win at WrestleMania. And Jean just goes, well, don't tell Jesse Ventura that. And then Leilani says she doesn't care what she has to do to beat Wendi. She's going to come back to the dressing room with her hand the victor. In our semi-main event for the WWF Women's Championship, Leilani Kai, with the fabulous Moolah in her corner, defends against Wendi Richter with Miss Girls Just Want to Have Fun herself, Cyndi Lauper, at ringside. This is, of course, one of the driving forces of the Rock and Wrestling connection. The Cyndi Lauper influence being brought in as a friend of Lou Albano's, leading into the brawl to end it all, the big title match with Moolah and Richter, doing buco numbers for ratings for MTV, and just really helping launch this great wave of momentum, for the company. It's funny for a company that took so long in, putting more stock in their women's wrestlers, the whole Divas Revolution, the Women's Revolution, all that stuff. We think about that, and it's such a relatively recent kind of advancement. When you think about 41 years ago, the WWF even then was dependent on the, the work and the actions of their ladies wrestlers to help get and drum up this national interest in their show. Of course, after the brawl to end it all came the war to settle the score when Moolah helped Kai beat Richter for the belt. And so that's what brings us to this match here. That iconic run down the aisle for the baby faces coming out to Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Really cool moment there. Wendi working the hammerlock early on, throwing the champion around. If tap outs were a thing back then, this match would have ended a long time ago. Kai is fighting in that classic Moolah style, hair mares and hair pulls aplenty. And on commentary, they keep bringing up, wow, talking about that 9-second match earlier. It's at least the third time they've brought that up. What 9-second match? I saw a 24-second match. There's a series of pinfall attempts. Richter's in the ropes. Moolah with some cheap shots, but Cyndi gets in there to break it up. Richter with a fireman's carry takedown. Follows up with a splash. Still not enough. Kai putting the boots to the challenger. Cannot put her away, though. She goes up top. She hits the dive, but Richter rolls through it. Kinda gets the cover and the win. Wendi regains the women's title, takes a shot at Moolah, and this great shot here of her and Lauper dancing around in the ring with the championship. This is a very entertaining matchup. Again, that fast pace that I think works really well for them. I think the added star appeal of Lauper being there and the dichotomy of her and Moolah makes it for a fun match as well. I mean, there's a lot of great work, a lot of great back and forth. I get the feeling that everyone here had something to prove with their standing on the card with this matchup. So I think the ladies definitely held their end of the bargain. And again, this is a part of the show that's just fun, Cyndi Lauper coming out, they're coming out with the music. It's just a really nice feeling, a nice memory. This is one of the first just rock solid WrestleMania moments. Then after the match, Okerlund's interviewing Richter and the gang. They're all very happy. Captain Lou is there in the background too, but he doesn't get to say anything. And then I look at the timeline on my computer watching this show. 40 minutes left for the main event. You know what? Some things never change. Let's get right to it because we've got a lot to talk about with our main event as the WWF champion Hulk Hogan teams up with the A-Team's Mr. T to take on Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, Jimmy Snuka and Cowboy Bob Orton in their respective corners. With Cyndi Lauper being involved with the women's title match, the other side of that is Mr. T's involvement with the WWF championship feud, so to speak, because Piper and Hogan, they've been feuding for a while. Of course, Orndorff's had it out for Hogan, turned on him the previous year. They have a match at War to settle the score, Piper versus Hogan for the belt. It ends in a big disqualification. Mr. T comes out to make the save, and that is how we make the match. This gargantuan battle. Madison Square Garden can barely contain the collective star power of these individuals. What's going to happen when this street tough fighter and Mr. T and this famous Hollywood actor gets in and tussles colossally with the WWF stars? This is a huge deal at the time, Mr. T, he is pop culture. He is a big name at this point in time. And so for he to be involved with the top guys in the WWF with the most recognizable name in Hulk Hogan, this is a money-making enterprise to be sure. And this program did make a lot of money, but you know what there was also a lot of in the run-up to this show? Whole lot of racism. Oh my God. There's so much stuff from Orndorff and Piper you just cannot say. I'm surprised they could say it back then, but you definitely cannot say the things that they said about Mr. T here at this point in time. But there was, that aside, there was a lot of animosity from the wrestlers. They didn't like the fact, you had Mr. T getting involved. Piper especially. Piper in his autobiography talks about how he felt about that. There's this total distrust. How are we going to let these outsiders into our club? And Piper had to deal with that and had to do business and be a good soldier. And that was a really big internal conflict for him. And it's a grudge he had with Mr. T up until WrestleMania fucking 30, So that grudge, it was real. And so that was palpable, the anger and the frustration and the hatred these guys did have for Mr. T. And there were stories that Mr. T was also scared, he was nervous that someone was going to try and shoot on him. So there was rumors he was going to walk out the day of the show or something. All these different variables. Again, so much about the run up to this show, which feels like if a domino fell an inch the other direction, or if the wind blew another way, then we'd be saying very different things right now about what wrestling is. It's crazy. But I do like the build for this because Mr. T goes on and on about, oh, they're going to fight dirty, guerrilla warfare, street fighting style. And yeah, let's see how dirty they really get in this match, by the way. But there's a great bit of training montage with like Mr. T and Hulk Hogan. They're in New York City and like they're on top of 30 Rock and they're like, oh, look at all this great view, brother. And then Mr. T is like, we got to go to Central Park and find the muggers. And so they go down there and they're just jogging through and like, how many muggers do we beat up, brother? Oh, I think we got 7 or 8 of them, brother. Like, wait a minute. I want to see footage of Hogan and Mr. T beating up muggers in Central Park on their way to WrestleMania. Why don't we have any of that? Instead, we just have videos of them shouting at each other everywhere they go. There's a part where they go to a grocery store to get their nutrition right. By the way, I'm pretty sure Hulk Hogan knows a thing or two about, diet and nutrition. But my favorite part about this bit is where Mr. T, one of the first things he does, he walks up and he says, you should get these raisins. Raisins make you mean. And there is a fantastic bit in the build to this match where there's a Piper's Pit segment at Madison Square Garden. All the players from the match are there. And, Piper's like, he wants to do kind of a goodwill offering to Mr. T to get him to quit the match. And so it's very Claude style. He has artwork that he presents to show Mr. T of what will happen to him. So he's these paintings of Mr. T in like a huge arm in a sling, his legs in a cast, full body cast traction Mr. T, which is the funniest thing I've ever seen. But also the detail of these paintings, it looks like those crazy Turkish movie posters, the art style of this. And then my favorite part of this skit is when Mr. T is very earnestly saying, Piper, I think you're a great artist, but I'm still gonna fight you at WrestleMania. He's just trying to no-sell these paintings, which are just saying, hey, we're gonna beat you up and put you in traction. I think you're a fine artist. So it's time to introduce the special guests. Guest ring announcer, Yankees manager, Billy Martin. Guest timekeeper, Liberace, Dancing with the Rockettes. Special guest referee, Muhammad Ali. Then we get the bagpipe band leading the way for Piper, Orndorff, and Orton. Then we get Eye of the Tiger over the speakers. We get the shot of Hogan, T, and Snuka making their way down the aisle. The pop they get as they make their way to the ring. You look at all those bodies in there. We got 6 wrestlers, 2 referees. Pat Patterson's hair is looking its finest orange hue. Like Gorilla Monsoon says, it is truly pandemonium before the bell even rings. And it really cannot be overstated just what a cool moment this is, the music, the rumbling of the crowd, it's all there. It's all building up to this, and I think it's just so cool. We get a lot of posturing early on, the guys taking their time with this one. Piper tags in, faces off with Hogan. T tags in, huge pop for this. They exchange slaps, they do some amateur work. T picks up Piper, hits him with a damn wasteland. It quickly turns into a big brawl with all 4 men. It's absolute insanity because Muhammad Ali gets up on the apron, he takes a swing at Cowboy Orton. Jimmy Snuka's just standing there on the top rope waiting for something to happen. It's fucking nuts here. So Piper and the team want to bail it first. Hogan doesn't want to win this by count out. The next thing you know, the cops are escorting the baddies back into the ring. Everyone wants to see this fight continue. We get a double team on Piper. Mr. T gets the slammin' foos, body slam, hip toss, body slam. Piper gets dumped out, but Hogan takes a cheap shot. Piper hits him with the chair. We get some double teaming as referee Patterson tries to keep T in his corner. Then Muhammad Ali gets in the ring. Now neither referee can see what's going on. Hogan takes all sorts of heat here. Orndorff comes off the top with the elbow, but misses. Hot tag to T. He lays into Orndorff for a moment, but he gets slowed down, gets worn down for a little bit, but T slips out of a front face lock and manages to tag. Piper distracts Patterson. Orton comes into the ring, but the Superfly cuts him off. He goes back up top. He goes to hit Hogan with the cast, but Hogan moves. Orton decks Orndorff instead. Hogan with a cover, the 3 count, and the win. Good God Almighty, he didn't even have to drop the leg. Piper and Orton take their leave as the crowd goes banana. Orndorff comes to. He realizes he's all alone before taking off. Big moment with all the stars in the ring, and we get the whole post-match chatter with everyone. Everyone's happy as the show goes off the air. I give it 3 stars out of 5. This match was a whole lot of gaga. Not a whole lot of street fighting, as Mr. T alluded to in the build, but damn, it was fun gaga. The enormity of this moment cannot be denied. It makes it for a much more fun and entertaining, spectacular way to end this show. I think everyone did their part. It wasn't the prettiest in the world, but Mr. T, for someone who has very minimal training, it's his first ever wrestling match, like, he did really well. Like, they all played their roles. And again, like, just the timing and the luck for everything working out the way it did. It's great to see it pay off in that way because, again, so much rode on this. And the fact that, like, everything kind of worked out fine and the fans were totally into it, like, that's what it's all about. And again, huge risk, huge reward, a hell of a way to blow off nearly a year of build. That said, my revised grade for this re-review of WrestleMania 1 is a C-. You know, they'll never be able to take away from them the fact that this was the first WrestleMania and the fact that it defied so many odds and that the company overcame so many hurdles to get to this point and for the show to be successful. It was a successful show, it was an historical show, but it was not a good show, you know? I think the big tentpole things, the things after intermission, the big three storylines, Andre and Stud, the women's title, and then the main event tag match, those were the biggest spectacles. Again, I don't know what I saw 8 years ago that made me think that the Bodyslam challenge was actually a good part of this show, because when I watch it back, it is not, from a purely a nuts and bolts standpoint. That being said, there are still fun takeaways from this show. Like I said, the main event's a lot of fun. The women's title match is great. It's fun watching Lord Alfred Hayes trip over his own tongue. And, you know, there's the nostalgic value of looking back at this and seeing this is where it all began is really cool. And of course, me personally having, you know, a personal connection to the opening matchup, again, to revisit that is really cool to see. And watching all the weekly stuff leading into this reviewing of the show really helped me gain a deeper appreciation for where the company was at the time and what they were going through and how they were able to evolve from where they were to the entertainment juggernaut they are today, with 40 additional WrestleManias under their belt, with another one coming on the way very soon. And it's seemingly going on for who knows how long from here. It all began here on this show. So many different ways this could have gone wrong in a fantastic scale, but it all worked out and everyone got paid. So yay, WrestleMania. But what did you think about WrestleMania 1? How well do you think it holds up today? And what do you think about this re-review? Let me know in the comment section below. Folks, next time here on the Classic Review, I'm going to be reviewing a new Classic WrestleMania. It is the oldest WrestleMania that I have never watched all the way through and have never reviewed up until now. We are going to look at the double main event of Hulk Hogan and Sid Justice, Randy Savage, and Ric Flair for the WWF Championship in the Hoosier Dome. I'm talking about WrestleMania 8. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.